So being smart in like 2026 and 2028 in today's era is the dumbest thing you can do. Yeah, I'm not capping. I'm not, saying anything wrong. I think being smart is the dumbest thing you can do. Well, because, you know, for example, like this YouTube channel, okay? If I think about it a lot about this YouTube channel, what I should, put in the title, what I should put in, my thumbnail and stuff, I couldn't do this video, okay? I just record my voice and I just post with, some dumb thumbnail and title. It's just that. And I have a YouTube channel. And, on the other hand, you, you are like too smart. You're far smarter than me. You don't have a YouTube channel because you are so analyzed and paralyzed. You can't even raise your arm, right? Right now, starting a second YouTube channel about how to grow a YouTube channel and stuff, and I realized that I actually analyzing a lot. So I think it's time to be a dumb again. Okay, actually, being smart is nice because you can be a dumb. Okay, you can act like a dumb, but being dumb is actually nicer because you are actually a dumb and you don't think about it. Your brain is not actually suffers from it, suffers from analyzing stuff and paralyzing your ass, basically. It's actually, I can put this scenario in like every stuff, starting a business, starting a YouTube channel, starting something or doing something, actually going to gym. If I've been going to gym for like, consistently for like 2 months. Before that, I stop going to gym and stuff. And I realized that if I like just become a robot, just like a robot, okay, it becomes easier. I don't think about how to raise a fucking dumbbell. I don't think about it, and I don't watch YouTube videos about it. When you like, you know, type, best exercises to like YouTube, you got like millions of videos. Like how to raise a dumbbell, raise like this. Sometimes you just have to like hold the dumbbell and raise it, okay? It's just simple like that. You don't have to watch like a 15-minute video about this. You don't. If you have a special condition, if you have a special health condition, of course, like, go and do your research. But if you're a normal person just like me, just go to gym, bro. Okay? Don't worry about this like protein or something like that. Just go to gym because that's what you need. Sometimes you just worry about how to do a job so much you forgot how to do that job. Sometimes you analyze so much, and sometimes you heard people like in your like high school and stuff, and you gather with friends and say like, oh, this guy was so dumb, but he's a millionaire right now. Because being a millionaire is not about being smart. World is full of smart people nowadays. Everybody's smart with ChatGPT right now. But when everybody's smart, I think we should be dumb. Because acting dumb, being dumb is actually nice. I actually feel nicer. I enjoy my life. I enjoy my life more. I don't think about what's gonna happen tomorrow. Of course I think about it. I plan, but not like those smart ass people. And it's actually like I realize that I'm in the college right now. The lessons, the classes, the math is not that hard actually. And the math is actually the simplest thing because the professor give us the stuff and we just put the values in it. We just put the value, and that's like the dumbest thing. You just have to memorize the values. And being smart in the school system, which is probably you are smart. You were smart, and look what happened. You're like poor, just like me. You were smart, but you think that you're smart. You know, actually, being a street smart is much more valuable nowadays, I think. Being having when I grow up, I I I thought that when I was small, when I was child, I thought that if I become mathematically smart, that's life. I will live my life, and everything gonna be perfect and stuff. But I grew up and I realized, emotional intelligence is much more important in life. Okay, in everywhere, in restaurant, in the business life, in meetings and stuff, in daily life, is much more important. It's important thing, because if you're like mathematically smart, academically smart, nobody gives a shit about you. Okay, they said, oh, you're too smart. How did you get that? And you flexing with your information and stuff. But on the other hand, a guy pull up and makes a couple of jokes, and everybody is gonna listen his voice. That's how basic it is, actually. And you're just gonna sit there and realize that, oh, these people are too dumb. They don't understand. Of course they don't understand. They don't give a shit about you. But sometimes, even if you know the answer, okay, even if you know the solution, you just have to act dumb. You know, in the beginning of this video, I said, you just have to be dumb. But sometimes you just have to act dumb. Act dumper. They said this about retardmaxxing. Okay, retardmaxxing. In my job, I currently work in the clothes store. Okay. Basically, what I do is I just organize the clothes, make sure everything is okay. But there's another job in my store, is that basically greet customers and organize payment and stuff. You have to know how to use a computer. Of course, I know how to use computer, but every time they call me, I'm saying that, oh, I don't know. I don't know how to use computer, but they didn't teach me. Though they get another one, and I just do my business, the easy part. Yeah, sometimes you just have to act dumb. And I learned, I was have to learn. But in the first weeks, and then in the first month, it was I was saying that, oh, they didn't teach me. Yeah. So, when I grew up, I realized most of the things. I read more books. But I recently read a book, 33 Strategies of War by Robert. I love reading Robert Greene books. Some people in the YouTube say that, oh, bro, like, read some fiction. I don't care. Reading fiction is not functional. I read functional books. Every book of mine is actually functional. I love Robert Greene books. Actually, it's a books that make me fall in love with reading. And one of the quotes says that, strategy of war, like Sun Tzu and type stuff. It says that we don't read books while it was something like that. There is a millions of information about war in books, but we don't go to war with books. That was life changing for me. Okay, that was life changing for me. And the same example while driving a car. When you drive a car, probably your father, your mother, or someone who know how to drive a car is with you while teaching, right? It happens to me too. My father taught me how to drive a car, but the strange part is that my father taught me how to drive a car when I was like 16, And legally I got my driving license when I was 18, but I was still didn't know how to drive because my father was with me. Okay, so sometimes you just have to throw yourself in the situations. So my father said that you have to drive yourself, without without with help from anyone. So I just did it first time, and it was equal to like 2 years of him trying to teach me. Okay, one drive of yourself was equal to like 2 years of assisted driving. That's crazy. Sometimes your brain, it just learns stuff. Don't underestimate your brain, but don't analyze situation a lot. So that was it. That was my second video. I planning about showing my face and making this channel a little bit more fun, maybe. But I think it's made me relax. So thank you for watching me. Just type comment what you want to see next, and goodbye, people. Goodbye, good people, smart people, and especially dumb people.